And imagine you're those people. Look, I was the director, and so a certain amount of fire directed at someone at my level is understandable. Take someone like Lisa Page. The president has not only lied about her, but in a misogynistic way, attacked her, mocked her, belittled her over and over again, and it was all a lie. So where does she go to get that back? I don't know, but we have to talk about it.
Really? Was it a lie that she slept with a colleague who was married and she was married at the time, and that they were carrying on with official devices and bad-mouthing a presidential candidate when they're at the premier law enforcement agency of the United States government? Comey, was any of that a lie? I just want to know. Because Trump talked about a lot of that. No, that wasn't a lie. Well, why was Strzok fired? Fired from the FBI, which let me tell you, it's really hard to get fired from these places unless you commit a crime. And even then, it's kind of hard to get fired. Why was Strzok fired? That seems so strange. Why was McCabe, little mini Comey, why was he fired? Does Comey want to try and answer this? No, there's nothing to see here, I suppose. Nothing to be concerned about. No issue. That seems quite strange, doesn't it? They're all victims. They're just decent public servants. Oh, they're just trying so hard to throw an election. You want to take the position that, if Comey wants to take the position that nothing was done wrong, I'd like to know why. If he actually looked into the Inspector General report, he would find the following. Although we found no evidence Comey was aware of issues at the time he certified the FISA application, multiple factors made it difficult for us to precisely determine the extent of FBI leadership's knowledge as to each fact that was not shared with OI and not included or inaccurately stated in the FISA applications. Interesting. These factors included, among other things, limited recollections, the inability to question Comey or refresh his recollection with relevant classified documentation, and the absence of meeting minutes that would show the specific details shared with Comey and McCabe during briefings they received beyond the more general investigative updates that we know they were provided. You know what this is telling you? That Comey and McCabe were told what was going on here. They knew what was going on with this. Remember, based on the dossier and based on what Papadopoulos said in part in a bar in London, they're investigating a presidential campaign, these little maniacs. And they're being told about this, but somehow there's no written record of what they were told, and there's no clear evidence of what those discussions involved. Isn't Comey the guy that always, I have to write a memo in case Trump says the mean things about me? Where are Comey's handwritten memos about those interactions? Where's the fulsome record? Oh, that's right. We also know Comey is Mr. I do not recall. And he just loves to say it, too. I do not recall, and I wish I did because I'm James Comey, and I just want to be so helpful to the process, and I love America so much, and no one loves America and the Constitution like James Comey. Lanky, bureaucratic lawyer, James Comey, okay? This guy wasn't storming the beaches of Normandy, everybody. The left needs to calm down a little bit. Or a lot. Doesn't remember anything. No record of the meetings. Does anybody really think that James Comey wasn't encouraging this process? Letting it just go, go through. Here's a better question. Or a follow-on question. I'm not sure it's better. All my questions are fantastic. What exactly should we think of the FBI's ability to police itself when it comes to FISA, to prevent, say, another presidential campaign from getting spied on? And we know it's always going to be the deep state Democrat, bureaucrat left that does this kind of stuff against the right. So there's going to be Republicans that are getting spied on. Well, what exactly are we supposed to think about the FBI's ability to police itself in this regard if on this investigation major stuff slipped through the cracks, they say, which, by the way, I don't think that it slipped through the cracks. I think this was intentional. I believe there was bias here. I believe there were people that thought they were going to be heroes to the Hillary Clinton administration by crushing Trump after he lost. And then when they realized what they had done, they figured they could only go all in and make it seem like Trump was the bad guy all along, even though there was nothing there. I don't believe James Comey. And speaking of people I don't believe, look at who was right and who was wrong. Because now we know a lot of things. Look at who was telling the truth to you and who was not. Adam Schiff, for example, versus Devin Nunes. If you look at Devin Nunes' memo from as a House Intelligence Majority Leader, or ranking member, he was correct. Devin Nunes is correct. The guy who's running this sham impeachment, Schiff, he was full of Schiff. He was wrong. Absolutely wrong on matters involving, for example, the dossier. It was so important for them when they were trying to just buy time to create more narrative and destroy Trump to tell us that the dossier wasn't a big part. Remember, there was this argument when the initial redacted dossier stuff came out. There was this big argument about whether or not for the FISA applications, whether the dossier was an important part of the FISA applications. And people said, oh, no, there's other stuff. You just don't know about it. There's much more importance. That was a lie. Without the dossier, they never would have been able to get this whole thing going. And they knew it, which is why they just went with it. This is, when people want to turn a blind eye, when people are not going to be fastidious, they're not going to be truthful, they're not going to be acting in, remember, good faith. If you can nullify any law. You can destroy the rule of law just by refusing to act in good faith in your application of it when you're a prosecutor, when you're an investigator. It's not hard to do. Oh, anytime we make a mistake, anytime injustice happens, just say it was a mistake. It wasn't intentional. Oh, no, we would never intentionally withhold exculpatory evidence. We would never intentionally stack the deck of evidence against a defendant. That's exactly what they were doing here. They have no explanation for it other than mistakes. Who's writing these applications up? It's a mistake that you don't tell the FISA court that Carter Page is obviously innocent of this allegation of being a Russian agent. That he was going to get 19% of a Russian oil company, according to the dossier, worth billions of dollars. I say this is not an exaggeration. Only a moron could believe this. But the top people at the FBI believe this. Carter Page was about to become a billionaire. This is in the dossier. Does Comey have an explanation for this? I mean, if the FBI agents that are entrusted with the most sensitive investigation of their lifetimes are such utter buffoons, maybe it's time to raise the FBI to the ground and start fresh. But oh no, they achieved their mission. And they achieved their mission, all right, of trying to slow down, obstruct, and destroy the Trump administration at effectively any cost. These people are really just a disgrace. I wish I could use other words, but they are a total disgrace. Lindsey Graham understands this a little bit, though. Lindsey Graham, sometimes on some of the stuff, is very good. Play clip 7.
While there may be reasonable differences about whether or not there was a lawful predicate, I believe there will be no debate among reasonable-minded people, particularly lawyers, about how the system not only got off the rails, but in my view became a criminal enterprise to defraud the FISA court, to deny American citizen Carter Page his constitutional rights, and to continue an operation against President Trump as President of the United States that I think was fundamentally flawed and unlawful. These are statements I don't make lightly, and these are statements based on the findings of the report. Unfortunately, at the Department of Justice and the FBI, there was a period of time when they went back to the good old days of J. Edgar Hoover, where they made stuff up. They misled people.
That's uncontested at this point. They misled the court. They created a stronger record. I would like to see, and people are asking this question, is this the standard operating procedure in the FISA court? That's very important, by the way, because if all FISA applications are full of false information, news articles that are improperly attributed to this source or that source, or lacking, deciding to just carve out, make editorial decisions about the evidence, keep exculpatory information out of the application so that people think that the situation is more egregious and therefore deserving of the approval of the warrant than it is. Here's the possibility. Either the FISA stuff is off the rails, which is, I suppose, possible. Wouldn't be that surprising. And maybe it's in part because it's supposed to be used against spies and terrorists. They used it against Carter Page, my friends. If you've spent 2 minutes listening to Carter Page, this guy was not a spy or a terrorist. And again, only a total idiot or somebody feigning idiocy. I can't know that this guy's not a spy. I'm just the dumbest person on the planet, but I'm a top counterintelligence official at the FBI. Whoops. So sorry. That's one possibility. There's another possibility that this FISA application was an anomaly, that the way they went about getting this going on Carter Page was quite sloppy compared to other FISA applications. And then that would raise this question. Why would that happen? They'll tell you it's just a coincidence, that it was a high-pressure investigation, and that, no, I'm sorry. Do you think the same people, let's just take a look at it this way for a second. Do you think the same people who were willing to orchestrate, and I'm talking about Comey and McCabe and Yates, remember Sally Yates? Yeah. You think the same people who were willing to orchestrate the ambush of 30-year military veteran and incoming National Security Advisor Michael Flynn on the flimsiest pretext, do you think that they're capable of, behind closed doors, colluding to stack the deck, colluding to present false information to the FISA court so that they could get a look at what would have been an end of the Trump campaign or end of the Trump presidency? All they had to do was find one email, one bit of information that actually went to Russia collusion. They have none. They've never found anything. They run around talking about Russia collusion still and Kremlin agents. They found none. No evidence whatsoever to support any of this. This was all a fantasy. But do you think the people that ambushed General Flynn and that apparently sleep well at night knowing that is what they did, ruin a man, send him to federal prison over nothing? You don't think that they're capable of shenanigans behind closed doors to go after the rest of the Trump campaign, and that Carter Page and the Papadopoulos were the pretext? That's what the debate is now. This was all pretextual. They were looking for information to confirm what perhaps was a real bias. They thought that Trump was involved in something nefarious because he had to be, because they hated Trump so much. And then they just kept ignoring the contrary evidence, and they kept pretending it was a more damning case than it was. And now they just tell us, oh, sorry, we're incapable of sound judgment. We who used to run the FBI, and in some cases ran it, or were involved with the FBI, ran it for many years, are just complete and utter idiots. That is their defense. And Comey's walking around, thinks he's doing a victory lap over this. This is deeply discouraging stuff. But Inspector General Horowitz, I expected nothing more from him than this, as you know. I'm just going to take it. Speaking of victory laps, what I told you at the start of the show before they released the Inspector General report was, I think, spot on. I don't think there was anything that I'd have to amend. It was all true. They were going to say it was just a bunch of errors. Yes, the dossier was a big deal. And oh, by the way, they had what's her name? Asha Rangappa over at CNN was one of the great Russia collusion truthers. Woman, I've never seen somebody get so much airtime to say so many stupid things about national security. And she was one of these people that would use a lot of technical jargon and, ooh, look at me, I worked at the FBI, and so I'm going to say all these things. So you're and things, for example, like the FISA process is rigorous, and they clearly wouldn't have used the dossier without verifying it. There were other people, Jim Sciutto over at CNN, another well-paid imbecile, that believed that the dossier had been at least partially verified. This was the story we were hearing. No, the dossier is legitimate. These people were walking. The inspector general's come out and said the dossier is a complete hoax. There's nothing worthwhile in it whatsoever. It's just lies. Was that what you were hearing from CNN? Was that what you were hearing from different national security analysts? Look, there were some never-Trumpers who were willing to be very useful to the Democrat cause here. I will refrain from naming a few of them right now because I do have I think that some of them are okay people, but they've just gone way, way astray. But there were some never-Trumpers who were saying, oh, well, clearly the dossier is not really the basis for all this. We were lied to, folks, lied to by a lot of people. And the only outstanding questions now are, was the predicate legitimate? I say no. And was there bias at work behind all the mistakes? I say yes.
The IG report just came out, and I was just briefed on it, and it's a disgrace what's happened with respect to the things that were done to our country. It should never again happen to another president. It is incredible, far worse than I would have ever thought possible. And it's an embarrassment to our country. It's dishonest. It's everything that a lot of people thought it would be, except far worse.
It's certainly what I expected, and it is an embarrassment. And the people that think that they should in any way view this as vindication of their beliefs that the FBI was just fine, there was nothing wrong here, they should be ashamed of themselves. But they are all incapable of shame. You know why? This is really just all about the 2020 election, too. Impeachment's about the 2020 election. The Inspector General reports about the 2020 election. Power is at stake. And when that is the case, people are willing to say incredibly dishonest and vicious things that they know to be untrue, but they don't care. And that's what we can expect in this impeachment fiasco. And by the way, according to Politico, there's a small group of Democrats who are floating censure instead of impeachment. Now, the impeachment vote is supposed to happen next week. Some of those now this may be hedging their bets. So these Democrats that have to go back to competitive states will say, "Oh no, I wanted to do censure, guys, but they wouldn't let me, so I just had to vote for impeachment." This is going to be quite an election cycle. We're going to the 2020 election. Trump is going to be impeached, and now that the talking point is going to be the impeached president of the United States, who had a special counsel investigate him. I mean, Democrats have thrown the kitchen sink at this guy. And I think that there's one key lesson that they have not learned this whole time. Trump thrives on their opposition. They did everything they could. Look at the October surprise they threw him with the Billy Bush tape the first time around. They think that they can just bludgeon the campaign of Donald Trump into submission, but I don't think it's going to happen, folks.
The numbers of illegal migrants along the southwest border have declined for the 6th straight month in a row. And this is a direct result due to this president's strategies to address the historic flood of Central Americans families illegally crossing the border. For this month of November, total enforcement actions on the southwest border in November numbered 42,649. That's a decline of 6% from October. This decrease is more than 70% at the height of the crisis in May. Remember, that was 144,000. 6 months later, we have reduced the monthly apprehensions by more than 100,000.
The border is in better shape now than it has been in a while. It's still not yet secure. We still do not have a wall, but I do think that it's important that we look at what's going on in the country apart from the Democrats with the shiny objects of impeachment and the IG report saying that that they claim is vindication for the FBI. I think quite the opposite. But the border is going to be a very big issue in the 2020 election. That much is for sure. There was a very interesting story just a few days ago where you had a viral video at the border of the wall being scaled at Mexicali. And this was one of the taller, newer wall sections, right? The way it actually works, if you go to the wall or if you go to places where there's fencing, you can see the old fence. And San Diego sector is a great example of this. And the old fence is obviously a bit beat up now, but also it's like 6 feet high, and it would take a normal person, less than a few seconds to just hop over it, right? It's not really anything. The new fence is, 25 or 30 feet high, and has, anti-grappling hook plates at the top, so it's harder to scale it if you try to throw something up on it. And it's unless you bring equipment, you're not getting over that fence. Unless you try to cut through it, or you have a ladder and, some kind of ropes, grappling hooks, whatever it may be. That cool gun remember when Batman used to have a little grappling gun? How come we can't, no one's ever really figured that one out, the thing about Batman that I never also really understood is he throws the little batarang things, right? He throws those, and they're very sharp, but usually in the movies, he throws them, and they just kind of hit people, and they don't, stick in them like a throwing star, and that wouldn't make any sense. I think you'd be gashing people's faces with those things. I'm just saying, I like a little realism in my batarang throwing. But the border video that went viral, and don't even get me started on the Batman series and how it's one of the most abused source materials out there in all of comic book fandom in terms of the movies that were made about it. Some of them were just absolutely horrible. I mean, really bad movies. There's only a few that are worth watching. The first one with Michael Keaton is good. The second one, Michael Keaton, is okay. You got Danny DeVito running around I'm the Penguin, the whole, and then you got the Christian Bale ones, which are good but not as good as everybody said. The first one's the best one. The second and the third one, Heath Ledger carried the second one, and the third one with Burn, People of Gotham. That movie makes. I know people get mad at me when I say this. The movie makes no sense. Come at me, bro. I'll explain to you a million ways why. It makes no sense. Nothing that's going on in that movie holds together. It's totally absurd. It's like they just cut giant sections of the script out. Anyway, producer Brandon actually knows that I'm correct on this one. But the scaling of the fence in San Diego was pointed to as evidence. Now, meanwhile, we've got a lot of crossings way down, so it is in fact possible if you turn off the incentive for people to abuse our asylum system, which is what was going on, and if you have physical barriers in place, you have a greatly reduced number of illegal crossings at the southern border, which had been, around a year ago, was really one of the biggest stories in the country. I think it was the biggest story in the country for a while. But they said, but fences. This was supposed to be a walls don't work moment. Among the dumbest talking points I've ever heard. Of course, walls work. Walls have worked for a very, very long time. And people who say that because, and by the way, this is also like any security measure has some failure rate, right? I mean, do front doors not work with a lock on it? Well, why do you lock your front door? I mean, I can always get through your front door if I have a battering ram or if I have the tools one needs to be a locksmith, whatever those are called. If I use some of my CIA ninja skills and just karate chop your front door, hi-ya, I can get through it real. That's right. I'll teach you that one day, Brandon. In case you ever get locked out, the CIA karate chop that you see in movies, it's amazing. It opens doors, and it gently knocks people out perfectly every time. They don't just turn and look at you, get super annoyed, and punch you in the face really hard. This is important.
Anything with the Vulcan death grip?
Oh, that takes a little more time.
Okay.
For this, I've got to
earn that.
I've got to put you through the full spectrum of CIA ninja training before I can show you the Vulcan death grip.
Understood.
Yeah. But maybe one day. Maybe when producer Mark gets back, I'll show you both. But the truth here of the fence of this video that everyone looked at and said, "Oh, see, walls don't work." Oh no, but the person scaling it got arrested. Because the way that security measures work is, in concert with other security measures, they prevent a thing from happening. The point of the wall is not no one can get over it. The point of the wall is to make it harder to get over, to make it harder to cross, so that Border Patrol can get there in time to arrest a person before they've made it into the interior of the United States to stop them from their illegal crossing. I saw this happen numerous times myself. Yeah, people got over the wall, but there are sensors on it, there are cameras on it, and if the wall is high enough, and especially if it's a double layer wall, where you have you have a wall one side, then you have an area that's a road where you can move in and out, and then you have another wall or another fence, really. Guess what? People can't get over it fast enough, and so they get caught. So the wall worked. It was just so funny, though, because a lot of leftists, a lot of liberals are desperate to believe that walls don't work. And I will say this, I believe that the president needs to follow through on this promise. And with the already greatly reduced number of illegal crossings because of the changes in the legal approach to people that are crossing the border, with that already in play, now if you add physical barriers and you make the public understand that physical barriers aren't just to prevent the human trafficking and illegal crossing that's going on at the border, but also to prevent the importation, the illegal importation of vast quantities of fentanyl, which are killing thousands and thousands of Americans. This stuff is coming from Mexico, friends. Then you have a very potent issue for the campaign. A promise kept, and also an important policy initiative that the president was able to get through, and that Democrats did everything in their power to oppose. Anything to stop that wall. I know what they'll say, of course, on the other side. Kids in cages, kids in cages. This is what they chanted at me on the Bill Maher show. I'll never forget this. I don't want kids in cages either. I don't know where this comes from. But they are engaged in a series of stunts now. There are people that will, for climate change, they'll lie down in the street and block you from getting to work and think that somehow they're doing a public service here because they're saving the planet. Climate change lunatics. Oh, you see, Greta Thunberg is up for Time Magazine Person of the Year, which, one, nobody cares about, but two, wow. It's done a lot by being a 16-year-old who reads speeches written for her by adults who are dishonest and disingenuous in their discussions of climate change. But there's a group of doctors who keep showing up to Customs and Border Patrol facilities saying that they must get access right away to give vaccinations to children to prevent them from getting the flu. It is, in fact, not federal government custody to give everybody, federal government policy to give everybody in custody, including children, flu vaccines. What I thought was so interesting is these doctors immediately, think about what happens here. A mob of people show up at a federal government facility and say, hey, we want to stick needles in children for their own benefit. You don't know who we are or anything about us. We claim to be doctors, but, who knows? You haven't been able to vet us or see anything. And we want to be able to stick needles in all these kids. And if you don't let us do it, you're basically Hitler. You're running concentration camps because you won't give kids flu vaccines at our whim. Because 2 or 3 kids have died in custody of the flu, of the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people who have been crossing and overwhelming border facilities for well over 18 months now. A few things about this. One is that the flu kills tens of thousands of people every year in this country, believe it or not. Young people and old people and people with weakened immune systems. But the flu kills a lot of people. The flu also, as many of you know, I'm not getting into a vax thing. I don't want to hear about it. Don't start sending me your vaxtruth.coms. I love you all, but I don't want to hear it. Producer Brandon, we made that mistake once. Just even bringing it up on the show. They won't stop sending me their stuff, and I don't need to see, vaxtruth.net/php.net_truthvax. I mean, no, don't do it. All right. I don't need to see it. Thank you. But the flu vaccine is a little bit less controversial, at least for most people, where you have an understanding that they have to guess at what the strain will be because there's so many different flu strains out there, and they're often wrong. And the flu, so, even if you get the flu vaccine, there's still a chance you'll get the flu. So what exactly are these doctors? I'm assuming they're all doctors. What are they doing? They're grandstanding. Do you know how long these kids are held in custody? People are These people are running up. Oh, how dare you? These are, smug libs. Oh, I'm a doctor. It's like I'm usually doing Botox, but now I want to just give flu vaccines to kids. Whatever. They're showing up. They're doing all this stuff. They're freaking out about it. You know how long these kids are in custody for? 48 to 72 hours. So just to show you how hysterical the left is now on the whole border issue. If you are unwilling to allow a mob of people with needles to inject children without any oversight, without anything at all, liberals think you're being inhumane because they seem to believe that the 48 hours they're in federal government custody, that's when they got to get that flu. I don't have a flu vaccine, although I probably should get one. Are you going to get one? But this is what this all comes to. Really, you don't get a flu vaccine guy?
I rarely get sick. I get allergies, but as far as like a cold or flu,
Look at you.
it never happens.
Maybe just, eating hamburgers with ketchup and like vanilla ice cream is the secret to longevity and
Just tell everybody.
immunity.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Expose my secret.
Eat off the kids' menu only, and you too can be like producer Brandon and never have any.
Grilled cheese protects against the plague.
I ate so many grilled cheeses growing up, which is amazing because I have celiac disease. I didn't even know it, but I ate grilled cheeses like my life depended on it, man.
Still do.
It's a great little secret with grilled cheese, by the way. People always forget this. A little bit of crack of sea salt.
Sure.
After people don't think of seasoning bread usually, but whether it's for a sandwich, but especially for a grilled cheese. Make sure you crack a little bit of the salt across the top of it afterwards. It gives a little nice
Zest.
a little nice something. That's one secret of the grilled cheese.
Noted.
Yeah. Another one, if you really want to do it at the next level, is you can actually grill both sides of the bread separately in a pan.
Sure.
And then, because cheese will melt at a much lower temperature, then the bread will start to brown and crisp, and then you actually can put the cheese in the middle after you've already sort of,
I'm afraid to tell you,
made that bread perfect.
but I like to dip it in ketchup.
I mean, I'm going to impeach you for this. This is absurd. And there are other things going on, despite the fact that the media focus is almost exclusively on all things Trump. For example, Democratic lawmakers have agreed to support the North America Trade Pact. I see here in the Wall Street Journal. Oh, wait, you mean remember when President Trump was tearing up NAFTA? Oh, he's tearing up NAFTA. He's such an evil man. Now Democrats like, okay, actually this updated trade deal is probably a good idea. You don't say. Here we are. Oh my, what a surprise. The trade deal that the president wanted to get done is actually a smart thing. Oh, man, it's amazing. The U.S.-Mexico-Canada trade deal, which it does need a cooler name, the USMCA, I think we need to call it like the Freedom Deal or something. We need to call it something, not the Freedom Hut, that's already taken, but we need something cool to call this. So this is going to be, by the way, this will be a benefit to U.S. trade, help our economy out. I mean, the economy that's already probably the best economy of my lifetime. And I keep wondering, is it really possible if it'll be a great test. And it'll be a sad day, obviously, if Trump doesn't win re-election against whatever socialist they throw up against him on the Democratic side. But at least we'll all know what the reality of how people feel about the economy is, because the market will tank if a Democrat wins. That will definitely happen. Like, no question. Market's going to go boop, because they know they're going to have somebody who believes in central planning and redistribution of wealth and social justice in place of a market and all these things. That's what will happen. They've learned none of the lessons of the last 100 years about how economies work and function. They just want to feel good about themselves and be in power and use other people's money to virtue signal. That is where we'll all be heading. We also, by the way, have U.S. and Chinese negotiators planning for a delay of tariffs. We were told that the China, we got to get that as a drop, man. We got to have that. I know you're doing audio cool stuff over there, but I'm just saying we got to have China ready, because I think the president knows he says it a little bit funny. And he says it that way anyway. He's you can't stump the Trump. So you have the China trade deal, or rather, you have U.S. and Chinese negotiators planning for a delay of tariffs, because there's supposed to be new ones that kick in on the 15th of December. It looks like that's not going to happen. So things are going on here that are beneficial to the economy, that are helping out Americans, and they're still getting done at some level thanks to the administration, because of the administration. And I am here to just be the one who reminds you, things are good in America right now, friends. You know, go out and crack a beer or a glass of frosé. Well, it's a little not really time of year for that. You know, have a hot toddy. Isn't that what the hot drink? Yeah. Was it just like whiskey with honey and lemon in it, I think? Something like that. Do something like that for your. Go enjoy. Or just, have a glass of producer Brandon style, nice milk with a chocolate chip cookie. How much I'm not going to lie. I'm a fan of that too. But celebrate a little bit, my friends. It's not going to stay like this forever, especially if a Democrat wins.